Welcome to Learn the Sword. A lot of times when we use wood and we want to use it to our advantage, we do. The cool thing about it is when you have a light sword, you use it for lots of repetition. This sword, this Bokutou, is so light I can swing it all day long. And it's good for you. It really, really is. You're in there, you're using all the muscles, everything stays nice, supple, soft, to the point. A lot of times though, as I said earlier in different episodes here, that if you use a heavier sword and use it with weight, it becomes better. There is a secret though, that the lighter the sword, the faster it is. The lighter the sports car, usually the faster and more handling, or the better it handles, compared to a big huge truck, which is nice and heavy, but you have to go at a slower pace to be correct. Well, this can go fast. But what happens if we start trying to build up our muscles and build up our patterns or our sword patterns using a heavier sword? It's called a tsuburito. They're used to build your muscles and define everything and make sure your patterns are really good, whereas a lighter one is used more for repetition, as I said earlier. Let's see the difference between a tsuburito or a heavier work sword compared to this one. Let's go over to here and you can see the difference between this one and this one. It's quite a bit different, isn't it? It's about 3 times heavier. It's a little top heavy, where this one feels good around the center. So if I take this sword here, and I work it in, you can see the handles, but now instead of coming down hard and fast, I can't. My body can't take that. So what I do is I go slow, and I turn, and I go slow, and then I go slow. And you notice the sword doesn't move as much. You can see when I turn my hands, it's staying parallel to the ground because the weight of the sword is so heavy that I have to use my body in conjunction with it. But see how smooth it goes up? And it works down? So if you can effectively take this at all angles and just bring it up and start moving it up and down this way and taking your time, that works in really, really well. But there are tsuburitos that are way bigger than this one. I've seen some around that are this big around with a handle on it. And you should see the guys who use those. They have forearms that are huge. And I'm not talking about spring chickens. I'm talking about guys in their 70s. Nevertheless, let's look at another tsuburito. And this one here, compared, look at the difference now. That's a big chunk of wood, isn't it? See the handle there. Now, this is some white oak. Now, see how big that is? The handle's a little too big for me, but this is teaching me to come in really slow now and work it in and use one hand and move it down and turn it and bring it in. And I find out that if I just take my time and work it through this way and slowly work on my rote memory with my various patterns with a heavier sword, later when I go back to a light one, it just feels a lot more like I'm wearing good racing gloves and I can really get the tip of it manipulated. Because this one is so big, it's hard to manipulate the tip correctly. Yeah. So just start practicing with these. Now, a lot of times people don't have a tsuburito or they don't want to get one. But you have a couple of 2x4s, or let's just say you have 3 or 4 bokken, because some of us do. So what I would probably do is I'd go back and I'd get my thin sword and maybe another couple of swords. Just like this. See how these are? And maybe tape them together. Just a little bit. So now you're coming through like this, and you start working all the different cuts and all the different angles. And this again is building your rote memory. It's adjusting your muscles to make sure that they all work correctly, because that's what a lot of it is about. Adjusting your muscles and making them work using a sword, because for example, if you do any other type of sport, there are muscles that are special to that sport. The ones that are special to this one are basically your forearms, your wrists, your hands, so you can manipulate the tip of the sword with the minimal amount of movement in your hands.